week 1 is in the books.
Coming at you right now is our week 2 starts and sits from a game to game. We got injury updates at you too as well. And the winner of our 500 sub giveaway. Coming at you. Let's jump into it. And welcome back to the Standard Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jono.
And I'm your host, Chris. And we're here in week 2. Needless to say, I'm like tongue-tied here today.
Well, no, I think you're still feeling the hangover the Jets loss on
yeah,
Monday night.
I am. But I am also feeling the euphoric victory with Breece Hall winning on his very last play of the game.
Chris beat me by 0.12 points. That 16-yard run before he got pulled from the game won him. So, needless to say, one of us was very happy. Well, I wouldn't say very happy because the Jets still lost, but one of us was happy and one of us was very angry after Monday night.
Yeah, then again, on Friday night, I had to watch you. I had to sit next to you while I watched Saquon Barkley put up 3 touchdowns against me. So you had your it
was an up and down weekend for us. It was, I'm sure, an up and down weekend for you guys in fantasy as well.
Yeah.
Before we jump into things, we had a big announcement to make. We had our 500th sub here on the channel. Thank you all for your support. Continue the support with liking and subscribing. Pass this page along. Hit that notification button. But our winner of the 500 sub giveaway merchandise is JMar760. We will DM you, get your information so we could send you out a piece of Standard Fantasy Football Podcast merchandise.
Hell yeah. Thanks, Jamar. We appreciate your comments. We appreciate your support. We appreciate all your support. So continue to like and subscribe and pass this off to whoever you find that would be interested in our fantasy football content as we bring it to you in week 2 of year 2 for us. So we got some injury reports. We got start sits for you today. This is a good episode, an exciting episode for you guys. Let's run down with the injuries for this week and who's nursing what. So the big one for the week coming off of week 1, well, I mean, there's a couple big ones, but the biggest one that we're going to see long-term action is Puka Nacua. So Puka is going to be out for 4 weeks minimally. He got put on IR. So not great news for you Puka owners, especially if you took him early in the first round. However, it's not a long-term. It seems like he avoided any long-term injury in terms of surgery or missing the season. So.
Yeah, I mean, really, at the end of the day, want to apologize out. We should have gotten our episode out for our waiver pickups for the week. It would have been a lot of the same of what everybody else had there, but we had our thoughts on each person there. So moving forward, we will have those. Both Chris and I were traveling for work, so we didn't get a chance to film. Moving forward, you will get those from us here too as well. Make this your one-stop shop for all fantasy football information.
Whether it's on a road, whether it's on a boat, whether it's in the air, we'll get something to you guys.
So Puka Nacua out. So again, we would have talked about their replacements that you would have gotten on your waiver options. We're not going to go to those right now. Let's talk about the Dolphins who are playing tomorrow night. We're filming this on Wednesday evening, on September 11th. I will say Raheem Mostert's already been ruled out, so that gives a leg up to Achane. However, Achane has also been nursing an injury. He did practice. He did go through walkthroughs, which, if you want to call it a practice, it was individual drills and walkthroughs. Jeff Wilson's a big one here in deeper leagues. If he is not picked up, or in other leagues too, and you are an owner of Achane or Mostert, it's worth maybe picking him up tonight to possibly throw in the lineup, because there is a chance Achane, even if does play, is limited in terms of his touches, maybe more to the passing style of the game. And we still are unsure too with Jalen Wright, the rookie, if he's going to be cleared from his injury to play. So it really leaves Jeff Wilson as the only healthy running back on this offense.
Yeah. I mean, the other big injury from this past week was Jordan Love, obviously. Again, avoided any kind of IR stint. They don't anticipate him going onto the IR. So it's probably going to be a 1 or 2 week injury that he's going to be missing some time. Not a great matchup this week anyway. I wouldn't have wanted to play him, but definitely a downgrade for the rest of that offense with him not at the helm. Well, more so with Malik Willis at the helm.
Yeah. Another person who had the same exact injury as him is Jake Ferguson. Weird to see two really same modalities for the injury in the same weekend on tackles like that. He didn't practice. He is on the side doing work. He is week to week or day to day. They are not going to put him on IR. They're not ruling him out for this weekend either, which is interesting to see. Most likely he's not going to play this weekend anyway, which gives Hendershot a chance to step in the role there. Jamison Williams popped up on the injury report. He did practice, but let's just keep an eye on that ankle if anything does get aggravated prior to Sunday's matchup.
Romadunze was injured this past week. He's nursing a knee MCL injury, knee injury. So keep an eye on what's happening with him too, because with Allen being limited in practice this week too, we've got both the receivers there. Either I'm taking a stab at Cole Kmet. I'm putting in DJ Moore. If both those guys are out, this offense is this offense didn't look good anyway last week. I don't think they're going to look better without two with their premier wide receivers.
Yeah, it's a tough one with both those guys. Keep an eye out on their statuses. It's going to definitely upgrade Tyler Scott, who's a training camp hero here and from his previous season too as well. People like him, so he has an opportunity to get opportunities here, especially if top coverage is going to go DJ Moore's way. Let's not forget DJ Moore did leave the game too, injured, and came back and finished the game as well. So just a beat up receiving core for the Chicago Bears. It doesn't make me like them much anyway without those two other premier guys. But again, in deeper leagues, is it worth throwing a flyer out on a guy? Maybe. For daily fantasy, maybe. Keep an eye on those. Josh Downs did practice, so good news for the Colts. They're getting one of their weapons back, but they didn't need him last week to perform. Now, that being said, only really 9 completions for Richardson, but Alec Pierce was the man playing the Josh Downs role, and he did a pretty good job at it. We'll see what that looks like for Downs and how they incorporate him and Alec Pierce into this offense.
Yeah, to be honest with you, the last week's game, Pierce looks great. I think he's really going to be a bigger role in that offense. I said it a little bit in the offseason that I think that Adonai Mitchell, even though they drafted him in here, could be the odd man out there. Yeah. And a lot of people scoffed at me and be saying like, oh, well, Alec Pierce, Adonai Mitchell's better than Alec Pierce. I'm like, Alec Pierce is a good receiver. I think Josh Downs is going to cut into more of Adonai Mitchell's role. It's going to be good. They might be able to run 4 wide. They can rotate in a bunch of different guys who have a bunch of different abilities. I like the way this wide receiver room is set up. But Josh Downs coming back, he's going to get work. He's going to get opportunity. There was a couple plays last week that Adonai Mitchell got targeted in that they just looked like Josh Downs routes.
Yeah.
And so I think Downs coming back is a huge step up for this offense. Another big piece of news is CMC is likely going to miss his second week.
Yep.
Late to the injury report, found out Sunday or Sunday night or Monday morning.
Yeah, was it Monday morning? He was officially ruled out.
That he was officially ruled out for the game, and people knew that he wasn't practicing. They still thought that he was going to have a shot to go. Jordan Mason looked really, really good.
Well, we know how running backs look in this the Shanahan offense. Yeah. As long as if
they're a one-cut guy, they're going to succeed.
That's all they need is a one-cut.
Yeah.
And because you have some of those stretch zone runs, which all they got to do is put their leg in the ground, cut up, and you hit the hole, and you're good to go. And we saw it with Mason. I like Mason again this week, and I think the Niners realize they don't need to rush CMC back. This is a team that wants to win the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And they're going to try and do that, and they need to do that with CMC out their back.
Yeah, I mean, you had a really efficient offense against the Jets, who were supposed to be a good defense this year, and without arguably your best player.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, Jordan Mason, go ahead. He's going to be a big pickup. I know he was a big pickup this week for a lot of people, a lot of leagues. The deeper leagues, he was drafted. In our league, he was drafted. Kudos to them. They're going to have an RB, top 5 RB this week.
Yeah. I'll roll through a couple ones here, quick hitters. You got Jordan Addison dealing with that ankle injury. He's probably going to be doubtful, has not been practicing as well. Darius Slayton, concussion for the Giants. That's probably going to give a little bit more opportunity to Jalen Hyatt. Njoku is already ruled out for the Browns, so that Akins is going to be the main target at tight end. Not a bad option there, but it is not Njoku. We do have T. Higgins still not practicing as well with that hamstring, most likely not going to play this week as well. That downgrades that offense once again against another tough matchup with the Chiefs. We have Dalton Schultz also dealing with an injury and did not practice as well. So keep up to date. We will send some more shorts if any other major injuries do come up or any news from there. But let's jump into what we're all here to think about is who are we starting? Who are we sitting this week?
Starts and sits, baby.
Let's get into it with
meat and potatoes.
The meat and potatoes.
Meat and potatoes.
Why don't we talk about the first game of the week here?
Yeah.
Okay. Bills, Dolphins.
Bills and Dolphins.
So you're going to start your studs here. I mean, both defenses are susceptible. We saw the Jaguars get up early on the Dolphins, and the Dolphins kind of clamp down their defense a little bit there. But you saw the Bills, too, give up a lot to the Cardinals, and were susceptible in different areas of the game. So I really like Josh Allen, James Cook here for the Bills. I'm not sure yet on this. Besides Keon Coleman, again, we're not listening to everybody here, but besides Keon Coleman, the jury's still out on who's going to really be the pass catcher, or is this going to be a season where he just spreads the ball around? I mean, Coleman's the only one that was target share heavy compared to the rest of the guys there.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to spread out the ball a little bit, I think, until they solidify a number one. I'd probably agree with you with sitting Khalil Shakir this week, although Miami let up some big plays down the field to guys, and it was kind of in the slot role. So
I mean, it was more to Gabe Davis. There was one 30-yard play to Christian Kirk, but that was it. They kept Kirk heavily covered in the slot role, and 69% of Khalil Shakir snaps last year were from the slot.
So I mean, that's if you like I said, I'm kind of cautioning to start anyone from a wide receiver core on this team until we really see a number one receiver stand out. I mean, even the tight ends and the pass catchers, I do agree with you. I think it's going to be Josh Allen spreading the ball out a little bit more. And a year where we thought they were going to probably take the ball out of his hands, it looks like he's going to kind of do the same thing and run the ball and be effective as a runner.
Yeah.
I mean, James Cook looked good in week one, too.
Yeah, there's nobody really spelling his touches in the backfield besides just getting breathers and some third downs from Ty Johnson, which that surprised me a little bit much. Ty Johnson got a lot of receptions this past game, which is, as a James Cook owner myself, I'm fine with. He's getting quality carries there too as well, and they're going to him when they need to. We saw that the Jaguars were able to go over 100 yards between their two running backs last week. Easily could go the same way for James Cook here. Again, the question is the touchdowns. Is it going to be Josh Allen sniping those touchdowns? And it was.
Yeah.
So
let me on the other side of the game with Tua, would you start him? Let's just say Mozart and HN are limited. You starting Tua?
Yeah, I'd probably put him in the start. He's not a heavy start to me. He's not a guaranteed, the fact that he did throw over 300 yards, he can do that every single week. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Now you look at what the Bills were able to do with Marvin Harrison, take him out of the game and make them really throw to the backfield, throw to James Conner out of the backfield, try and have Kyler Murray find Dortch on these smaller routes and try and find Wilson on a scramble play, broken play. So I don't know if they're going to be able to be as successful as Kyler was being able to scramble with this Bills defense. I know they gave up points, but most of it was to the running game and to the ground with James Conner just ground and pounding, which is why I do like the running backs in here. If Wilson's the starter and Achan's out, I like Wilson in this game. I do like both the receivers because regardless of the fact, the matter is both of them could be 100-yard receivers even if Tua has a bad game. They easily can both be the 100-yard receivers.
Yeah, which is why I'm saying do you like Tua?
But Tua could throw for 250 and one touchdown. And
that's what I'm saying. If you don't have those two running backs, and we know Mozart's out already. If Achan's not playing in this game and he goes to doubtful and he goes to out, you like Tua more? Do you think they rely on the running game just as much?
Yeah, I think they have to. I don't think they go away from what they do. Period. Jeff Wilson knows his offense. Yeah, but I mean, throw the ball and use their speed. I mean, Jeff Wilson's not slow, so I just don't have Tua as a heavy start. But as you notice, he's not in our sick column either.
Yeah.
So again, he is most likely your second quarterback. But if you fade a quarterback and he's your starter, you feel comfortable starting him.
Sure.
I just don't see him as like hey, stamp this one in for sure.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next game here. All right, we got Bills, Dolphins on to the Saints, Cowboys.
Saints and Cowboys. All right, so on the starts you see Alvin Kamara, CD. You're starting your studs. Brandon Cooks is on here and Rashid Shaheed are on here. Cowboys defense you're starting, and then Dak Prescott you're starting. You're sitting Derek Carr, Olave, and Zeke. Tell me why you don't like Derek Carr in this game.
I don't like Carr in this game. He faced the Panthers. It was fool's gold last week. Literally, they wear gold, and it was fooling you to start him this week. The Cowboys' pass rush is so good, and he is so bad under pressure. I don't want to trust Derek Carr this week. He's not going to throw 3 touchdowns. We're going to see a little bit more Taysom Hill, I guarantee you, in certain points as well. I just think last week they were benefits benefited because the Panthers just couldn't just stop the big plays. And Kamara had a great game. I still like Kamara in this game because the running backs did favor well last week for the Browns out of the backfield, and that's his specialty. CeeDee Lamb got heavily targeted. We know he's going to be heavily targeted by Dak. The Saints are a good defense, but Lattimore was injured in the game last week, so that's something to keep an eye out for if he's going to be healthy in this game. On top of that, Shaheed, the reason why I like him as a start is Jerry Jeudy got the touchdown last week for the Browns. Somebody's going to find an open opportunity, and he's usually that speed is going to win. He's going to be loose at some point, and Carr likes to wing it. But I love the Cowboys D in this matchup. Derek Carr has never been somebody I've been confident in ever in his career.
Well, this is probably going to be my my trap game of the week because I think the Saints could win this game.
But I'm not talking about major fantasy value, like big point value.
I am.
Like you're talking Derek Carr slinging the ball.
If you are, I'm going to say this: if you have Alvin Kamara in a PPR league, you're starting him this week as an RB1 as probably a top 5 option.
Yeah.
He's probably going to get a lot of work out of that backfield, and he's probably going to break off a couple big plays against this defense. It has the feeling of that game, and I know that it's. On paper, it looks like they're going to get absolutely same old Saints, and they're going to get absolutely smoked. But I think this is a trap game that I think that the Cowboys can come in and get shocked early. And like I said, I didn't think their defensive line or their offensive line played particularly great. They looked effective against that Browns defense.
A very good Browns pass rush too.
They did, but like the Browns offense couldn't do anything.
Yeah,
that defense was on the field.
That's why I like this offense. Like Deshaun Watson still ran for good yardage. Derek Carr's not running for that yardage.
No,
too.
but he has a guy like Kamara he can dump it out to that's going to win one-on-one on the outside or with any linebacker that's matched on him.
Part of the reason I don't like Olave in this game is because Cowboys are very good at taking away a top receiver.
Yeah, I mean,
especially with Diggs being healthy. And Olave was a non-factor last week.
Olave has always been one of those guys where he's like quietly over 1,000 yards and, a handful of touchdowns, and he's going to have a good season at the end of the year. It's just I've never been in love with him. Like, oh my God, I need to have this wide receiver.
Yeah, and the only reason I'm sitting Zeke here, and I'm saying Zeke, but it also includes both running backs here, is if you watch the game for the Saints-Panthers, the Panthers did one thing great last year, and that was run the ball. They couldn't do that against the Saints this year. And Saints have a good defense in this division. They had a good defense last year. They were tough to run on, tough to pass on. Overall, around the board, they're a good defense. Well, they really stuffed that offensive rushing game from the Panthers and made them very one-dimensional.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's I'm probably not going to start either Zeke or Dowdle in this game. I think the start sits that you have listed are probably where I would favor Shaheed and Cooks kind of on the edge there. I probably like Shaheed more than I like Cooks.
Yeah,
they're pretty close.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I like Cooks, and I put him on there for the sole purpose of if Lattimore's playing, and Lattimore tends to key on the main player of that receiving game, Cooks is going to find himself open.
They're also still going to hyper target.
100, and they did last week, but look who found himself
last year.
Who found himself wide open last year and this year. And it was Cooks. Benefited a lot of touchdowns last year.
Yeah.
Already has one in week 1.
Yeah.
So
we said I think this could be a resurgent year for him too.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Cooks is a flex play. He's not.
Yeah.
It's a good flex play if you need to.
Yeah.
With all the injuries. So let's move on to Bucs Lions.
Lions.
This one I see this could be another under game here.
Under? I don't think so.
I just don't see. I mean, I'm not heavily on that. Like everybody expected there to be a shootout with the Rams. I think the Rams defense surprised some people too. We knew the Lions defense was good. Well, the Bucs defense wasn't that bad either. They couldn't stop one thing: Jaden Daniels rushing the ball. That was it. That's the only thing they couldn't stop in that offense.
Yeah.
So I don't see Baker. I mean, Baker Mayfield can scramble, but not like Jaden Daniels.
There's a different offense.
Correct. Different type style offense, different everything. So, but that being said, we've got the only big sits here are going to be the Bucs running backs. I mean, if you watch the Sunday night game this past weekend, Kyron Williams struggled against this Lions defense. Ronnie Rivers broke off one decent run, and that was about it. I mean, and they ran the ball a hefty amount of times, but when you can't get a big chunk play on first down, you really stunt the movement of the offense. And the Rams saw that last week, which is why Cooper Kupp had 21 targets. So I think the Bucs are going to struggle because they did last week too as well against the Commanders. Bucky Irving had a better yards per carry than Rachaad White. Rachaad White fell right back into the rhythm he was in last year. Better through the air, slow on the ground.
Yeah, but the counter to that is that this offense revolves around punishing like having these low average yards per carry, get them into third and short, and then converting on that.
Correct.
Like this is a good offense, and this is a good team. I actually think this game's going to go over. I think both these offenses are good offenses. We saw Chris Godwin look good last week. McMillan look good last week.
Well, he had one play.
The targets that he was getting are you should be really optimistic if you are a McMillan owner in Dynasty about his future. And we kind of thought that he might have came in and taken away some of Chris Godwin's work. Godwin looked really, really good last week.
I didn't think he was going to take that because Godwin was working out of the slot a lot, and he was awfully
I know,
and
but
often
if you look at the targets that McMillan was getting, they were down the field. He had the touchdown. I think he looked good on that. Mike Evans, you're going to start.
Yeah, and that guy just catches touchdowns.
And I think we're going to see bigger numbers from the Lions wide receivers.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the one...
I was like pass catchers because Laporta put him in that too.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I have Laporta on here. I have... you don't see Amon-Ra St. Brown in here. I should have him on here, but he's a locked and loaded. You're not even thinking about sitting him ever. Last week was a little bit of an anomaly. Let's just put this out there. The total average of passing yardage by quarterbacks in this past weekend was 200 or less. I think it was less because of the Monday night game both being under 200. So you take that with every tight end, every wide receiver with a grain of salt. Like it was very hyper. I think there were only 8 receivers that went over 100 yards, 7 or 8 that went over 100 yards this past weekend. That's unlike what we've seen on an average basis last year. So Amon-Ra is going to be right back to where you drafted him for this week. I still like Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery in this because they split carries. Gibbs got a lot of the receptions, but they split carries and were both effective. We saw that Brian Robinson Jr. was effective against the Bucs last week, and
as a pass catcher.
Eckler was definitely effective through the air last week too.
No, Jahmyr Gibbs should have both of these guys should have a really good game. The only thing I would disagree with, I'm going to say Cade Otton, but the Bucs running backs, I think that they could be a really good play this week if you're looking for if you need a replacement flex because of some injuries that you're dealing with on your team. If you played one of these guys, I think you'd be happy with yourself.
Yeah,
they're going to get work.
In PPR, Rachaad White is worth plugging into the lineup, but there's other options I'd rather have out there because I just don't see. I see this Lions defense being difficult to run the ball on again. So regardless of how open they open the field up with the receiving game.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to your team here. Why don't we go Jets Titans here?
Yeah.
Shorter list as you can see, but pretty much I'm sitting the Titans wide receivers and Tajay Spears. I've yet to. I was not impressed by week 1 for the Titans at all. Tajay Spears got spelled in the running game big time by Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard looked like Tony Pollard 2 years ago, which. Granted, we talk about ACLs every year. Ankle injuries are just as important. I mean, we look at Eckler last year. Eckler looked spry again this year. It takes some time to come back and get the full speed and things. And I don't think Pollard was quite there after the procedure he had at the end of the season year prior.
Yeah, and I just think that the Titans are going to have another disappointing loss this week. I don't think they're going to have a huge lead like they did and blow it. But the Jets are a good team, even if it's just on paper. And those good teams, led by good leaders in the locker room, which the Jets have, they're going to bounce back after a tough loss. And so I expect a big game from Breece Hall, big game from Garrett Wilson. I even like Lazard. Mike Evans is a deep sleeper where I think that they can involve him a little bit more this week.
You meant Mike Williams?
Mike Williams, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, he was out there as a decoy.
He was out there as a decoy last week. And just to kind of get his feet wet, right? He's probably going to get integrated in slowly. So I wouldn't expect anything before like week 4 where he's really taking a bigger workload there. But Lazard's a good option. We saw the rapport that he had with Rodgers. He's a good start this week, especially, if you're dealing with injuries and you're dealing with some of these wide receivers. You're a team that has Puka and T. Higgins. Go ahead. You can probably fire up Lazard in a flex spot and feel good about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shot you want to take. I mean, we have his picture up here. He had a fantastic game Monday night. Definitely benefited being off-covered wide receiver at times. I don't know if you saw the spreadsheet of Aaron Rodgers' throws, but he threw it to the whole left side of that. He threw away from Nick Bosa.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. He threw away from Nick Bosa the whole time. I don't think they're going to get the pass rush that the Niners had against them. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to feel a little bit more comfortable throughout the game.
I think they're going to be more effective running the football, too.
That, too. And I think Garrett Wilson is going to have himself a day here. I think regardless of L'Jarius Sneed, we know he doesn't really shadow. He usually stays on one side of the field here, knowing from the Chiefs. So I think Garrett Wilson's going to have his opportunities. And like you said, I think Mike Williams gets out there. Part of the reason why he was lining up on the right side of the ball the entire night when he was out there, and Rodgers barely threw to the right-hand side. The big reason why also I don't like Tajay, he did get enough in the passing game here, but those Jets linebackers are so good.
Yeah.
As long as Mosley's not injured and he's back out there, like those guys are quick. They're quick closers on those passes out the backfield. So fire up Jets D here. Moving on to Raiders-Ravens, another one where you fire up a defense, fire up that Ravens defense. Chargers made the Raiders look very, very poor, like Pee-wee team. In terms of the Raiders here, though, I do like what I saw out of Brock Bowers, maybe not out of the total production, but the target percentage and the amount of targets he got for his offense. You are firing up Devontae Adams. I know it was a bad outing last week, but the Ravens aren't a team that just takes away one wide receiver. They're just very good tacklers. They're very good scheming. They're very good pass rush. They're good defense overall. And so in my opinion, you do lose Van Noy with the orbital fracture. That takes away one rusher away from should free up a little bit more time. But I'm more heavy on the Ravens as starters here.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen in our league that I'm sitting Devontae Adams this week against this team. So I think this is a sit. I think that the Raiders offense is going to be overmatched against the Ravens defense. And you're right, they don't take away one receiver, but they get after you with so many different schemes and looks and blitzes. Correct. That, like, we saw Minshew not hyper target, like almost purposely not hyper target Devontae in week 1. He likes to throw down the field. I think Bowers is a good option this week. Likely, I'm still starting. He was a big waiver ad this week. I'm going to start him. Andrews, I know you have him as a start, but it's scary. And every Mark Andrews owner is terrified.
I'm not that scared. I'm not an owner, but I'm not that scared. I mean, I watched the game over again, and I watched how much Spagnuolo had one plan that game. Take Mark Andrews out of it, and then his secondary plan was spy Jackson.
How'd that work?
Well, they took Mark Andrews out of the game.
They did.
And the one time Mark Andrews beat a guy on a one-on-one man coverage on a nickel corner, he had a great little shoulder shimmy, got open, got the first down. But if you watch, he was double covered a lot, shell coverage, and most of the time Lamar Jackson was trying to scramble away from the routes that Andrews was there too. And the benefactor of it all was likely because they did run a bunch of 12-man offense, and he had a lot of bump and runs on Chris Jones that allowed him to get in the flat.
But that's the thing, is they're going to have a lot of 12-man personnel.
Correct.
So he's going to be on the field a lot.
Yes.
And I like both those guys. If they're going to have one of them stick in and block, it's going to be Andrews. Honestly, in my opinion, I think they both go out for receivers. And the one who was blocking last week was not Andrews. Yeah.
It was likely, but he was a block and go. He was a delay route.
Yeah.
And that was because Chris Jones was an absolute animal. I don't think the Raiders, Max Crosby, they may have the same situation with Crosby, but again, the biggest, you take away that touchdown. I know you could talk about that all day. You take away that broken play touchdown, which was a beautiful play by Likely to know to turn up field and not just stand there and ask for the ball. And Lamar was able to get to him. He has a mediocre performance outside of that in terms of catching ball in the flat and really not doing much with it afterwards because it was a 70-yard touchdown. So
he had 11 catches.
Yeah. Take the 8 out of all those catches. It was all in the flat because nobody was covering him once he chipped. So again, I'm tempering my expectation with Likely, but I'm also tempering my expectation with Andrews because of what happened week 1. I just think there's a room for both of them to be successful. And I don't see teams being as successful as the Chiefs were with taking Andrews out of the.
Yeah. So the next question about this game before we move on is you have Zamir White as a sit.
Yes.
Are you starting Alexander Madison?
No.
So you're sitting both of them.
Yes.
Do you see an issue? Do you see a problem in the future for the Raiders backfield?
No.
You think Zamir White's going to just keep rolling with it?
Yeah, I think Zamir White is the better running. He reminds me of Nick Chubb and Josh Jacobs. More Josh Jacobs, but reminds me of Nick Chubb as being a pure running back out there. He's not one of these guys that tries to dance. He tries to shift around before he hits a hole. He hits the hole hard and he goes good. We knew Alexander Madison what he was. He was Dalvin Cook light, and he couldn't get it done. But he's great out the backfield at receiving, and he's good in open space. And Zamir White is not that shifty guy in open space. He's a good pure runner. I think they go with a 1-2 punch. I'm actually more scared about Madison because if the rook Lob ends up coming out there, he's a great pass catcher, and he's shifty as anything.
See, I think that Madison's usage and his performance kind of hurt Lob.
It did, but I'm saying there's. If
I agree. I think
Zamir
White's going to bounce back. Not in this game, but he's going to bounce back.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough game. We saw Pacheco. We talked about him having a great game. He had 40-something yards and a touchdown. If he doesn't get that touchdown, we're talking about, man, he got stuffed.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Let's move on to the next game, Browns-Jaguars.
Browns and Jags.
I actually think, to me, this could be an interesting one. We saw the Jaguars give up over 300 yards of passing offense. We know that the Browns are going to have to pass the ball well. I mean, you have Jerome Ford in the backfield who's good enough to keep you going. I think this is going to be an Amari Cooper just overload game here.
Well, it has to be, and with Njoku out, the short routes are going to go. I think Amari Cooper is going to have a good game down the field. But I know you have Jerry Jeudy as a sit. I would probably sit him too, but him and Elijah Moore, one of those two, I can see just having a blow up game.
I honestly think Jerome Ford is going to have a lot of balls caught out the backfield. There were a couple games last year where Njoku was hurt where he was great.
Yeah, and I think Jerome Ford's usage is definitely going to go up. They're going to rely on the run a little bit more and pound the rock in this game, play good defense, get back on track onto what we've seen from Cleveland the last year and a half. On the other side, the Jacksonville Jaguars, you're sitting Ingram, you're sitting Trevor Lawrence. Are you sitting Christian Kirk too?
I'm in the middle with him there.
Okay.
I'm in the middle with them there. The reason because you're sitting Evan Ingram because this defense is pretty good against their linebackers are pretty good. Their defense is good against tight ends. They've shown it all last year. And Ingram got kind of phased out of the game plan as well last week when you have two successful outside wide receivers. And the same thing happened with Kirk because when you go two wide receiver sets, you have a fantastically talented rookie, Brian Thomas, and you bring in Gabe Davis, who's a great wide receiver, who I just don't think got the opportunity with Target Hog Diggs in Buffalo. So those two guys taking major chunk yardage and major big play opportunities, it kind of takes away from those short area big play, get him in open space with Ingram. And when you have closers like you do with the linebackers here in Cleveland, I just think it's not going to be a successful day for Ingram. Not to say that you should definitely sit him because all the top ones did bad last week, but I'm not saying there's a better option out there. I'm just, if you have another option in a better matchup, I'd prefer to go that route.
Yeah.
And then the Trevor Lawrence one is more for the fact that this defense is great. Dak had it. Like, everybody thought Dak had a great game, but go look at the stats. Like, he didn't have to do much. He didn't have to manage much in the game. Could he have a better game? Yes, but he had he took a lot of sacks, and he had a lot of third and outs that he should have converted. And I think Lawrence is going to have a difficult time here, especially with the fact that they can shut down these running backs. I'm still sticking with ETN even after the fumble. I think Bigsby comes back down to earth a little bit here. And the only reason I picked Jerry Jeudy out of this one is I just don't see this team being able to really do what the Dolphins were able to do. Like, Jerry Jeudy is not Jalen Waddle as a wide receiver 2 on this offense. And it took Waddle a 60-yard play to get him over 100 yards for the day at that. So I think this defense could be pretty good. And I think they're going to be better than you think. I think this is going to be a lower scoring game, but I do like it could be Amari Cooper that could have 2 of the touchdowns for the Browns. That's it.
Yeah. Moving on to the Niners Vikings. Revenge game, Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I mean, how many revenge games are we going to give him a year?
Everyone. Every single one. It's a revenge tour.
So I have him as a sit, though, here. Aaron Rodgers faced a ton of pressure. Aaron Rodgers had some good plays, had some bad plays. Sam Darnold had a good game on paper. He had the 2 touchdowns. The Giants played him pretty well. They had one bad coverage play that was for that touchdown to Naylor. They held Jefferson to 56 yards and just a touchdown. And I honestly thought that touchdown was an amazing catch by Jefferson because the guy's arm was right in the way. Should have been honestly deflected.
Yeah.
But in my opinion here is Sam Darnold is going to have a tough pass rush defense, better, as good if not better than the Giants. I think better than Giants, obviously. And Brock Purdy, I think, is going to struggle here too because I love the defensive schemes that get thrown at opposing offenses when they play the Vikings. And you saw the Giants' offensive line's worse, obviously, than the Niners, but you saw what they can do to try and pressure this quarterback. I think it's going to be maybe another one where he maybe throws for 1 touchdown, maybe 2, but you're going to see a lot more Debo. You're going to see a lot more Jordan Mason. You're going to see a lot of plays here keeping this defense, guessing in the Shanahan way.
I could see a big Kittle game on this game.
I can too.
So I like Jordan Mason in this, obviously, without CMC. And again, this is the second game where I'm sitting Aaron Jones in our league against the Niners. The Niners looked good against the run, and the Jets' offensive line is their first official game playing all together. A lot of new pieces there, and they're going to have to find some ways to kind of get through that season, come together. But it's also was wreaked havoc on by this offensive front or this defensive front for the 49ers. And so that's where I'm saying I think Aaron Jones is going to have to break one off or score a touchdown in order for him to have a good fantasy game.
But that's what I'm banking on that because I think Aaron Jones does that more than people think he does. And I also like him as a pass catcher out the backfield. I think he's more effective. Like I know Ty Chandler was in there for a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I still think he can be effective out the backfield. Brees can do that well too. But I think the play calling for the Vikings is more leaning towards that side of the ball to aid in Sam Darnold, whereas I think the Jets weren't leaning heavily on Brees out the backfield as much as I think they probably should have on Monday night.
Yeah. I mean, they just didn't have the opportunity to because they had 15 3-and-outs.
Yeah, exactly. Chargers, Panthers.
Not a lot here.
Well, not a lot here on purpose. I mean, let's be honest.
Let's go ahead and sit the Panthers for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Right?
Honestly, the one, really polished turd out of the whole thing was Adam Thielen. Old man Thielen still finding his way to be a favorite target and a good outlet, and he's going to get it done. He is like a Cooper Kupp. He's a good route runner. He knows how to work zone defenses. He can get himself at least open in man coverage as well, and he knows what to do when the pocket breaks down. So I'm not saying go start him, but I'm saying he still should be thought about being owned. Deontay Johnson was a non-factor in this game here.
Yeah, and it was surprising to me that he didn't get drafted, but Deontay Johnson did. I think. Anyway, moving on to this game. This is going to be kind of an uglier game. We saw what the intention of the Chargers is going to be this season. It's going to be pound the rock, collect first downs.
Yep. But we knew that. We knew.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hardball way.
Yeah. I mean, Ladd McConkey looked really good in his first NFL game.
Heavily targeted. Open often.
J.K. Dobbins looked amazing in his first week back after the last 2-3 years for him. It's been what an awesome story that's been to recover from those kind of surgeries and then come back and have a performance like that. He looked good, and I said this early in the offseason. I said that everyone was jumping on the Gus bus, and you should really I'll figure out a phrase for that for Dobbins, but Dobbins looked really, really good, and if he returned to 80% of what he looked like when he was a Raven, when we saw him on the field for the Ravens, if he looked like 80% of that, he's going to be really, really good this season.
Yeah, I was off Gus in the offseason with you as well. I wasn't on JK because it was such a high risk, but where you were getting him, you could do that. Kamani Vidal seemed the most plausible person to come in with the young legs and get an opportunity, and he still may. Listen, everybody's going to be sitting and waiting for the other shoe to drop for J.K. Dobbins. Like, he's going to get injured. And you got to be honest, like, it's plausible with the history he has. Re-injury can happen any day. So
why are you gonna?
I'm just putting.
I gotta be negative for the
but
guy.
I'm starting J.K. Dobbins. Like
Starting
the guy
J.K.
looked
Dobbins.
fantastic.
The other guy I want to throw into here is Josh Palmer. I thought we saw the Panthers defense break down when the ball was going downfield, and Josh Palmer is that guy for this team.
Well, Quentin Johnson did that last week.
He did do it last week, but I think Palmer is going to have the opportunity for it
I
this
like
week.
Palmer. I
We also saw
really want to be
good old Stonehands come back out last week.
Listen, rightfully so, but he had a higher depth of target than Palmer. He made a couple good catches. He finished with a better stat line than Palmer.
He did.
Listen, you want to do a water bet?
No.
Yeah, we don't want to do it. But I'm not saying start Quentin Johnson here. I'm not going to even advise that. But I like Palmer. I like Johnson. I think this is maybe a time where Harbaugh gets a little more creative if they start getting a little bit comfortable in this game and really let Herbert do Herbert things too.
Maybe. We'll see. I think there's going to be a lot of structure on this team.
Oh, I mean structure. I'm not saying like, hey, go ahead and just free for all. But I'm saying
I know.
There's going to be opportures to air it out. There's going to be opportunities to like let him.
They're going to take their shots in this game
because they got to see who's going to be alpha there. Moving on, Seahawks and Patriots. So two tough, stingy defenses here. Definitely in the running game. I think Ramondre Stevens is a start for me. However, this is going to be a tough defense for him to run on. They did a pretty good job last week, but he is the Patriots offense. So regardless of the matter, he's going to get balls. He's going to get reception at the backfield. Antonio Gibson did not do his job running the ball as well as Ramondre did. So I have no qualms against Ramondre about what he's going to be able to do here. Kenneth Walker, that's one guy we didn't put on our injury report earlier, but he does have an abdominal injury. He did come back and try and play through it. I don't think he finished the game. I think Charbonnet, I didn't get to see the end of it, but Charbonnet came in, wasn't as effective. So if Kenneth Walker's playing, I like him here.
A great touchdown down the sideline.
Receiving touchdown. But I'm just saying, on the ground, Kenneth Walker looked as advertised. He's so good.
He looked so good. The one guy that's not on this list that is my anytime touchdown player of the week is Jalen Polk, going back to college.
Yeah, I have yet to see what Jacoby Brissett likes to do with the ball.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I don't think he's going to have a huge stat line. I'm not going to say start him, but you want to throw an anytime touchdown out there that's going to be have a good payout, Jalen Polk.
Listen, I want to go out there and say this, though, because I was a little bit hesitant on the JSN train in this offseason. I know everybody wanted, like, oh, JSN's going to be unleashed. He's going to be unlocked. And we both said it. They signed Lockett back.
Yep.
Lockett's still there. He is not a bad wide receiver. He dealt with injuries last year. But this guy already led the receivers last week.
Yeah, he looked good.
He looked great.
He looked good against. I mean, it's hard. It's hard after week one to be like, this is what they're going to do, and I don't want to overreact in week one. JSN is going to be more involved in this offense than he was last year. And if we like that, like, he's going to be a good player there.
Yeah.
And his production is going to go up. I think the excitement is more for what JSN can do rather than taking away the excitement for Lockett.
Yeah, but we're so quick to want to forget the fact that the rapport of Geno Smith with Lockett is an actual thing.
No, we're not.
Trust.
Yeah, no one.
But we are, because we just want to see these young guys be the next Justin Jefferson every single year too.
Yeah, but we're not expecting that to happen for JSN, but we are expecting him to have a bigger role, a more exciting role, what he can do with the ball in his hands, and to be a third option as a receiver with DK and Lockett in that room opens up that offense even more.
Well, I think if there's going to be an opportunity in this game, it's going to be for Lockett or JSN. I think Gonzalez is going to have pretty much DK got shut down last week with Surtain.
Yeah.
Gonzalez is a great cornerback too, can shut him down as well. And so I'm more in line to trust on Lockett or JSN in this game here than I am to sit there and hope DK Metcalf is able to get himself free. Now, he's going to get his targets. You're still starting him.
Yeah.
But don't be surprised if he gets shut down again and Lockett ends up leading the receivers in yardage once again this week.
Yeah.
Giants Commanders. So my team here, another short list on the start and a long list on the sits. This is my thought process. You look at that Giants game last week, you take away the pick six. The game wasn't out of reach just yet at that point. And then it just all fell apart. The offense looked terrible. I'm not saying that part of it.
The offense is probably the worst offense in football.
Yeah, the Giants' defense looked good, but you can't be good a whole game when your offense can't stay on the field and let you rest either. Jaden Daniels is going to be able to run all over this defense just as he did against the Buccaneers. I see the similarities in the defensive line in terms of that. I think the pass rush may be a little bit better for the Giants, but that doesn't always mean sacks against a rushing quarterback. That just may mean, he's going to scramble around you and get more yardage.
Yeah.
So
I still think that we're going to see some more shots down the field from Jaden Daniels.
I hope so. I want to see what he's got.
Yeah, I'm sitting Malik Neighbors. I know you're not, but because you don't have an option. But Daniel Jones just looks so incompetent as a quarterback, and
yeah, I don't disagree.
I can't start any receiver if I have zero faith in that quarterback.
But this is why I'm starting him. It's a pure volume.
I
volume.
I understand that, but like you say that volume, and you're saying because Slayton's out, but like Slayton.
No, it's not because Slayton's out. That's a Hyatt benefit.
Okay, but Wandell was the guy that got volume last week.
Yeah, Wandell got volume because the amount of blitzes and rushes that were against him. I don't think
they're going to.
I don't think this defensive line is that good.
It's not about the defensive line. They're going to call extra rushers, and it's going to scramble Daniel Jones to where he doesn't know what he's doing.
Great. I'm just saying, I think last week was very difficult. I think the Vikings are very good at scheming up and rushing like that. Flores is very good at doing that. Here, I think Malik Neighbors is going to be just fine. I think when you throw the ball 42 times as a quarterback and you have that bad of an output, like if he does just 10% better, Malik Neighbors has a chance to go over 100 yards.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, he had 60-some last week on 5 catches.
Yeah, that's not 10%.
Yeah, 10%. 2 more catches to Malik Neighbors.
Okay.
Could get him there. But I just think it's going to have to flow through him. You can't go to Wandale and these little dink and dunks and expect the offense to be able to move the ball. That was the problem too.
I understand that, but that's what the offense is because they can't do a 5-step drop back. That offensive line is terrible. They can't do anything.
I don't disagree, but
so
I'm not sitting Neighbors. I'm starting Neighbors.
Go ahead.
I'm sitting everybody else. I'm sitting the Washington wide receivers, and we saw the Giants were able to shut down the Vikings wide receivers. They couldn't shut down the run, which is why I like Brian Robinson here.
I mean, there were two passing touchdowns against the Giants.
Yeah, both. One was a 20-yarder, and one was in the red zone inside the 15.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but what happened? Who beat that game? Aaron Jones.
Daniel Jones.
Yeah. The Joneses.
Daniel Jones beat himself.
They were the Joneses.
Yeah, but these. I mean, I'm down to clown with.
The only reason I have Austin Eckler as a sit is I think Brian Robinson gets in there and gets a ton of carries, and I think Austin Eckler they're not going to need to pass out of the backfield as much as they had to last week if they're moving the ball well.
Yeah.
Let's go on Colts Packers. This would have been a more interesting game had Jordan Love been around. That being said, do not start Malik Willis.
Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. I don't care. Listen, if you have to, you have to. And we're starting him in our dynasty because he's probably going to get more points in our flex than anybody else we could start in our flex at this point. But I'm also sitting Christian Watson because of that.
I'm going to sit every Packer except for Josh Jacobs, and even with Josh Jacobs, I don't think there's going to be a threat of anyone on the back end, so they're going to load the box and make. They're gonna dare Willis to beat them.
Yeah, I left that spot open for Malik Willis. I mean, one thing I will say about Willis, he can move. He can move out of the pocket because he can actually be mobile. I think there's 2 players here, Dobbs and Croft, that are going to be able to find themselves being a aid to Malik Willis, a short yardage targets and just getting themselves open. Does that spell for a good fantasy day? Probably not.
I'm also starting Pittman in this game.
I'm more against Pittman here. I just didn't like the way that team played last week. The way that Richardson threw the ball was not in favor of the way Pittman plays.
Do you remember that game where both CJ Stroud? I mean, it was kind of like looking and watching the Friday night game in Brazil. Like both those quarterbacks were slipping on the field.
Yeah, I watched.
You have two big touchdown passes that come from both these guys just slipping down and falling, getting back, reestablishing themselves and throwing. Pittman's going to be more involved this week. They're going to get he got signed to a huge contract there.
I agree.
He's a big part of that offense. They need to get him going. They need to get that. If they're going to put waves this year and go to win that division, they're going to need to know how to throw the ball consistently down the field. And 9 completions is not going to do it. They're going to push the ball downfield. They're going to push the ball to their big guys. I expect a big bounce back game from Michael Pittman this week.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have him as a start here. I would have put him in here had I got your notes ahead of time, but I don't have him as a sit either.
Don't throw shit at me.
I'm gonna throw shade at you. These are mine up here. But I don't have.
I'm just saying I disagree with you. I'm just saying.
Well, there's nothing to disagree with. I don't have him as a sit either.
Well, you just have him in limbo, and I'm saying you shouldn't have him in limbo. I disagree with you in that.
Well, move him to your start category there.
Well, maybe.
Jonathan Taylor, you're playing here. I mean, we saw what Saquon was able to do to the Packers on a slippery field, but Jonathan Taylor, arguably top 5 quarterback in the league too as well. I think he's going to have opportunity to be used all over the field and may help out this passing game too and give Anthony Richardson time to throw.
Yeah, for sure.
Moving on to Rams Cardinals. This is actually one I want to see. This divisional matchup is always an exciting one every year. You're starting Cooper Kupp. You're starting Kyron Williams because you saw what James Cook was able to do to the Cardinals last week. Now, that being said, James Conner may have benefited the fact that Josh Allen can also run the ball, and you got to respect that. But I also think Kyron Williams is more of a pure runner than James Cook is, and a good between the tackles guy. James Conner, you're starting this guy. He's going to just take the Cardinals on his back with Kyler Murray. He's great out the backfield. He's great between the tackles. I like Parkinson here as well. I didn't put any of the 2 receivers that were the big waiver wire acquisitions. Both had 7 targets last game. Both could be heavily involved. I think Parkinson is the bigger relief valve for and secondary check down for Matt Stafford because of that rapport already.
Yeah, so I like Parkinson in this game. I like Demarcus Robinson in this game.
Yeah, I like Robinson too. If I were to pick one,
if you're going to take a shot on someone, take a shot on him. Cooper Kupp's probably going to get
another 20 targets.
Another 20 targets.
He's just open all the time.
He's open all the time. And yeah, I mean, I would probably everything here. I think a bounce back game for Marvin Harrison too. I think they're going to look all the stories about him and the target share and how he was just uninvolved from that offense. They're going to get him involved.
Well, the only grain of salt I'm going to put on with that is look what happened to Amon-Ra last week. Like they game planned him out of it, and do they try and do the same thing with Marvin Harrison? They might. I don't know. I don't think they need to, but they might. And they did. If they did it to Amon-Ra, they can do it to Marvin too as well. So and Blake Corum's a sit, and that's just because he had 0 snaps last week. So he's going to be the next Algier for Kyron, or is he going to be the next guy? He's going to be next Kyron to Kyron.
I mean, Blake Corum, knowing Sean McVay, Blake Corum can easily take every carry this week.
Very true, but I have him as a sit because you can't expect that.
Yeah, well, also you're a Kyron owner.
You also can't be surprised by that.
Yeah.
Steelers at Broncos.
Gross.
But you're playing Najee here.
Start the Steelers defense. That's my hottest start from this game.
Steelers defense. I actually like the Broncos defense this week too. In my opinion, I think you're going to put Justin Fields, who's projected to play. I have him as a start, and that's purely for rushing upside. I feel like George Pickens is going to get shut down just like DK did last week.
Yep.
And who's he going to throw the ball to? No, he's going to run. And he could have 2 touchdowns or 1 rushing touchdown. He could have 100 yards rushing and give you good points as a quarterback position, decent enough. But it's still a bad matchup. You're sitting all your Broncos. I think Freiermuth may be the biggest benefit too. We saw what Cole Kmet was to Justin Fields in the past. It could be Freiermuth to him this year.
Yeah.
Because he's going to get pressured. They're going to try and get after him. This is a good defense. I would play both defenses in this game, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah, not much to talk about in this game.
No. Likely that the Broncos are probably on your waivers to pick up. Steelers are probably already owned. But
yeah.
Bengals Chiefs. You're starting the Chiefs D. I have that on here. In terms of the Chiefs players, gotta love Pat Mahomes. Gotta love Pacheco. If you looked at the game, Ramondre had a fantastic game against this defense last week. I do see Rashee Rice still being the big guy here. You do want to keep an eye out about Hollywood Brown if he is suiting up, because I think that's the only guy that can threaten targets for Rashee Rice. Xavier Worthy's going to do a lot with a little, and it's the same thing in the young career of Tyreek Hill. He did a lot with a little, and I think that's going to grow over time. But right now, it's Rashi's. Rashi is the wide receiver room.
Yeah, I mean, I would start Xavier Worthy in this game, and I think a sleeper for this game is Yoshi. Got my Princeton shirt on for you, bud. I think Yoshi is going to be. T. Higgins is probably not going to play this week again. This is going to the Bengals are going to have to throw up points. The problem is that the Chiefs' defense is good enough to just shut the Bengals out, and the Bengals' defense or offensive line is awful, and allowed so much pressure last week against Burrow that I don't know if he's going to have a lot of time, but they're going to try to get the ball out. I still think that you can have valuable wide receivers from a fantasy perspective in those types of games. So if you're going to start Chase, I think Yoshi on the other side is a good option to start as a sleeper.
Yeah, I think so too. I just didn't have him as a big start on mine, but you notice I didn't have him as a sit. I didn't have Burton as a sit. Like, somebody's going to get in there and try and give Joe Burrow an opportunity if Higgins is out.
Yeah.
I have Zach Moss as a sit, though. If you did watch that Thursday night game, Derrick Henry didn't see stacked boxes, but he saw plugged up holes pretty often. Like, it was difficult for him to get going on the ground. He was able to get that touchdown because he's Derrick Henry. Zach Moss is not Derrick Henry. And the team's going to know that, hey, we're going to make Burrow try and throw the ball, especially if you saw Burrow on the sideline shaking out his wrist, rolling his wrists around, the one he had surgically repaired. I don't think it's an issue, but maybe it bothers him for a couple of weeks until he gets comfortable throwing the ball as much as he's going to have to.
Yeah.
So that's why I have Burrow also as a sit. Like, if Higgins plays, maybe I bump him into a thinking about starting him and not a sit. But I have him as a sit right now until I see this offense start to move a little bit better.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the last two games here in the Sunday night game, Bears-Texans. These notes were made before the injury report was done here. So obviously you have Keenan Allen in here who has a chance to not play. Odunze's not on it because we knew that he did have his injury with the MRI. He is day-to-day, so there's a chance he still does. If he does play, there's a chance I'd like to see him go if he's full go, but I wouldn't risk it on coming off a sprain. I'm starting DeAndre Swift here. We saw the Texans too, give up plenty in their last game to the Colts. I just think DeAndre Swift is going to have to be this focal point of his offense to help free Caleb Williams up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm leaning on sitting everyone except for DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. I know me and you talked earlier today when making this list up that I like Swift and everything. I think Swift can be a start. I think they are going to rely on him heavily.
They have to.
I just don't know how effective he's going to be.
Correct.
And so if this game is going to break open, it's going to have to be from like DJ Moore or Cole Kmet getting short stuff to be a relief valve. Caleb Williams didn't look great.
No.
This is not a bad defense with the Texans. So this is very different than playing the Titans. And this is a much better offense that they're playing on the other side where their defense is going to get stifled.
Yeah.
So from the Texans perspective, I'm actually cautious on CJ Stroud. Like, this is a good defense, the Bears.
It is, but you have 3 premier wide receivers.
Yes.
So that's the reason why I do like him in this matchup.
Well, so those Texans wide receivers, you're going to start them. How do you rank them?
I honestly think I think the biggest game comes from Stephon Diggs this week.
Yeah.
I think the Bears are going to do a good job with trying to shut down Nico Collins. He's going to get his opportunities. He's a very good receiver. I think Tank Dell is going to have some big shot opportunities too as well, but I think the constant go-to guy is going to be the mismatches that Diggs is going to create over the middle. I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities for that.
I have Nico, Tank, Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, I've got Diggs, Nico, Tank.
They got Diggs. They got Diggs 2 touchdowns last week. They'll shut him up for 2 weeks. He's going to spread the ball to everyone else.
I just think he's going to be open so much. I just think he's going to be open.
Yeah. I mean, it's depending on who's running out of the slot, I think.
I mean, I'd start all 3 of them. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I would.
And then Joe Mixon, this guy he's Benjamin Buttoning the league right now. He's looking younger this year.
Look at last week what Tony Pollard did to this team. So I'm starting Joe Mixon. He looked good last week. Fire him up.
Yeah, I have Cole Kmet as a sit. That was before the Keenan Allen news, and so if Keenan Allen ends up sitting, I think Cole Kmet is going to have to be used in this offense, and it'd be worth a flyer on him if you're streaming tight ends.
Yeah. Problem is when your quarterback only throws for 98 yards.
It's very true.
How much ownership of a wide receiver there do you want?
Well, we'll see how many turnovers that they get in the Texan zone that reduces the amount of offense they need to run.
Yeah.
Final game of the week here is Falcons-Eagles.
Start everyone.
Well, it's not that I start everybody, and I was thinking about this a little bit when going back and forth. It was
guys, I made a list.
It was a bad game for the Falcons week 1. Pittsburgh is a premier defense.
Yeah.
And they rushed heavily on Kirk Cousins, and he just looked uncomfortable.
He didn't look healthy.
No. Well, I don't think it's not that he looked healthy. He didn't look comfortable.
He didn't look mobile.
Yeah, he didn't look
good.
He
didn't look like he was sitting on that back foot and throwing and driving off it. Like he didn't look like he had a good rapport with his wide receivers. And
well, I still think the jury's out on Drake London. I do not like him as a wide receiver 1 on a team.
No, I don't think he's a good wide receiver 1 on a team.
So but here's the thing: is I have Kirk Cousins as a possible start. We saw what Jordan Love was able to do last year. We know Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback in the NFL. And if he gets his opportunities, people are going to be open because you have a top-end tight end in Kyle Pitts. You have Drake London, who is you want to be this big guy, but somebody like Darnell Mooney or
Ray McLeod
can find himself
open.
Darnell
Mooney.
Yeah, find themselves open across the middle and get targets often. And he's going to find the open man. And I think, in my opinion here, the Eagles' defense is still not good against the pass. And you also have Bijan out the backfield. I think they're going to get him more involved in some dump downs. I just think if you saw the game with the Eagles and the Packers on Friday night, this Eagles defense is susceptible to giving up points as they were last year. They are not as improved as everybody hoped they would be.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I probably would start everyone. I'm not starting Kirk Cousins. And I probably, like where you drafted Drake London, you're probably going to have to start him. But I don't have any ownership of him. And there's a reason I wanted to stay away from him.
So I agree. I would not start Kirk Cousins if you have somebody better in your lineup. But if you are a Jordan Love owner and Kirk Cousins is all that's left to pick up, or he's your backup that you drafted, I'd feel a little bit more comfortable going to this game. But would you?
I'd rather play Baker.
I was going to say, would you rather play Baker?
Yes.
Yeah. Would you rather play Goff?
Yes.
Which those guys are all picked this. Would you rather play Geno?
Yes.
See, I'd rather play Kirk over Geno.
I'd rather play Stafford.
Primetime Monday night. Well, primetime Kirk. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So,
staying away from Kirk Cousins.
In the Eagles, it's pretty obvious. You're playing Hurts. You're playing A.J. Brown. You're playing Saquon Barkley. You're playing Devonta Smith. I think Devonta Smith has opportunity to just, finish the season as the leading receiver for this team. He's just always open. He's so good.
You starting Goddard?
No. He's the one guy I had in my sit list that I removed. Something's got to give. Like, when you have Saquon in this offense now, it is another piece where
just wait till they start abandoning the run like they did last year.
Yeah, well, if they do that, then I'm on Goddard again.
Yeah.
No, but I'm just off Goddard here on this one too. Freiermuth had a decent game last week, but that's a different offense where they need to use that tight end. The Eagles don't really need to use it. He's going to have his opportunities. He's probably going to get maybe 50 yards. He's drafted in most leagues, and he's drafted higher than he probably should have went in most leagues. So you're probably playing him, but don't be surprised if he throws up another dud.
Yeah. Well, that's our week 2 starts and sits. We made it. We made it through. A little longer than we thought it was going to be, but that's okay.
Not really an hour in there. We went through them all. If you have any questions on your starts and sits, if you're in a pinch, don't forget to hit the comment button and type it out for us. We will be happy to get it to you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification button.
Ding.
So you get everything we drop coming up here. We are doing 2 episodes a week here. Wish we could do a little bit more, but we have full-time jobs and we do travel for work. But we will be doing our Tuesday morning releases and our Thursday morning releases for you guys. So keep a lookout for them. Hit the notification button so you know when they do drop. And as always, thanks for tuning in. See you next time.